Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Gal Swisa Cohen, and on today's episode of The Israeli Bond on hmTv, my special guest, David Black, will join me for a conversation about his life, about Judaism, and about the Jews in the diaspora. So, David, who has just retired after 14 years as executive director of the Sid Jacobson JCC of Long Island. But his career is far more unusual than this title suggests. Before the JCC, he was the CEO of French Institute Alliance Française. Please correct my French.
Alliance Française.
Yeah, in New York, where his work in cultural diplomacy earned him the French government
Ordre de Mérite.
Yes, exactly. He served as Associate Vice President at Yeshiva University and Executive Director of JCC Manhattan. And critically, he founded the American Friends of Yachad in Unum, an organization that works with Father Patrick Desbois to locate unmarked mass graves of Jewish victims shot by Nazi mobile killing units in Eastern Europe. At the Sid Jacobson JCC, he built something quite distinctive. On one hand, he expanded it into a major regional social service hub, a full-time cancer wellness center serving anyone, regardless of religion, a massive food bank, partnerships with the Chinese community, mental health resilience program. And on the other hand, he established the Long Island's primary and actually only infrastructure for Israel engagement, funding the Randy Wolbe-Malinsky Center for Israel, launching Israel Fetch, which draws more than 5,000 people annually, and coordinating 38 synagogues and organizations. So this combination radical universalism and unapologetic Zionism in one institute is rare. And this is why I'm so glad that you joined me today.
I'm happy to be here.
So David, before we will talk about everything that you've built, I want to understand something that is more in the core of things. So when did Judaism become so centered in your life? I mean, was it something from childhood or something that happened along the way that made you feel this is my calling? Like, where does passions come from?
Sure. First of all, I'm going to have to start by answering another question.
Okay.
And that's, who are you? And the fact of the matter is that you are part of an it couple from Israel that is transformational on Long Island when it comes to Israelis connecting with American Jews and others. So I just wanted to thank you and your husband, Dagan, for doing all that you do to connect Israel and American Jewry. I think that's very special, and you guys have been extraordinary at it. To answer your question, I think it probably goes back to my childhood. Two seminal things that I think were transformational for me. One is I was lucky enough to be part of, it was Midway Jewish Center in Syosset. And the rabbi, when I was growing up, was powerful. And before one's bar mitzvah, you needed to go to shul and to listen. And when I heard his sermons, somehow they spoke to me. So it turned me on as identifying myself as a Jew. The second was the 6-Day War. My family was glued to the TV, and I was glued with them. And all I wanted was for Israel to survive.
Can I ask, how old were you?
It was 1967, so I was 13.
Okay.
I was 13.
So young adult, already like starting.
Yeah.
A teen.
Yeah. Those were the two major aspects that turned me on both to identity and also to Israel.
Okay. So this moment that you saw the 6-Day War on TV, what did you felt? Like, why is that moment that really connected you to Judaism? It happened in Israel?
No, it connected me to Israel.
Okay.
Judaism is something else entirely, right? The pathway to spirituality and the pathway to identity are not necessarily the same from my point of view, but The 6-Day War was both pure fear of what could happen, but also watching a miracle unfold at the same time. That was Israel. That was a Jewish miracle. That was transformational. It completely blotted out the fear because I saw the miracle.
This is actually super beautiful. I want to take you but a little bit more into Judaism, because we're going to talk about your connection to Israel. You're like half Israeli, I can say. But I really want to tap into, because all along your very rich resume, you're involved with a lot of things that are, a lot of organizations that are Jewish, purely Jewish, without Israel. If it's the JCC, Yeshiva University, it's like it's Jewish, but it's not like the main thing of it. But
Yeshiva?
Yeshiva.
Yeshiva is the mothership of Orthodox Judaism.
Yeah, but today it's a little bit, I agree, but today it's like a little bit more than that, right? If I get it right?
Yeah.
So I want to ask you specifically about Judaism. So what room does Judaism gets in your life today? You think it's like basically your identity, it's more spiritual thing for you? How would you describe your connection with being a Jew?
So those are two different questions. Personally, I identify the Jew first as a people, and then Judaism as the faith of the Jewish people. But I also understood along the way that there could be people that are Jewish atheists. Sounds like a contradiction in terms. But the fact of the matter is you can be a Jew and not believe, because your identity is one as a people. So, there's that Avram Infeld diagram that basically says, choose where the Jew belongs. And the first one is a line that says Protestant, Muslim, Jewish, Zoroastrian, right? And the second line is French, British, German, Jewish. Where does the Jew belong? Most American Jews will tell you that it's the first line. But the establishment of Israel was all about the second. It means that we were a people first and a faith came second. So my identity was as a people. My identity was as a Jew, not Jewish. That came later, much later in my life. Right? So interestingly enough, when I first went to Israel, the transformation for me there was that I saw the difference between what it was to be a majority culture and a minority culture. That blew me away. There is a significant difference. That's the difference between you and as an Israeli, and me as an American Jew. What I wanted to learn from you was, what is that freedom that you had growing up as a majority, without the encumbrance of feeling as if you were in a little bubble in a majority culture?
Because this is how you felt growing up here.
Yeah.
And when exactly did you went to Israel, and for how long?
I went when I was 25, and I went for a year.
A year?
Yeah.
So what program? It was part of a program?
No. I wanted to make Aliyah.
Oh, okay.
So I went as what they call a Toshav Zmani. I went to an absorption center, Merkaz Klita, in Kfar Saba. They put me through a program of 6 months of learning Hebrew, 6 days a week, 5 hours a day.
This is where your Hebrew is from.
No, it's actually, my roommate was from Argentina. He didn't speak a word of English, and I didn't speak a word of Spanish. So we had to learn a language together. So that helped me. But it's also a beautiful language. I mean, most Israelis don't understand that that Hebrew is like pure poetry. When you really translate it, it's poetry. So in any event, the concept of faith, of spirituality, came much, much later. It actually came after my father died and I started to say Kaddish.
Okay.
And then I started to understand. What my faith was teaching, and my years at yeshiva actually put me in touch with the depth and the wisdom of our faith, which is extraordinary. And again, most people just get the surface. When you go to shul on Friday or Saturday, you're having all this rote. You don't really know what it all means. It doesn't touch you. But when you study it, it's fascinating. It's extremely wise. It's pure wisdom. And everything has an explanation that can help you in your life.
So, like you jumped ahead a little bit now, but if I'm gonna sum it up, you're saying you always had a connection to being a Jew, not necessarily Judaism as a culture, as a people, and you felt a strong connection to Israel. You moved to Israel for 1 year, and then you decided not to do Aliyah.
No, I couldn't find a job.
Oh, that was one of the requirements to stay?
No, I wasn't coming from wealth, so I needed to earn a living in order to stay. So there are other things that occurred, but essentially I couldn't afford to stay. So the plan was I wanted to come back to the States, get a profession that was going to be easier for me in Israel. And
then what happened?
My wife came along.
Oh, it's always. But this is this is a very good cause to stay.
But so that's why also I stayed connected in some way, whether it was through Machon Weizmann or it was through yeshiva. Even when I was with the Alliance Française, there was an Israeli connection. So
I'm glad that you mentioned it, because we're talking a lot about Judaism and about Israel, but then a bit early in your resume, I would say, you were, exactly, the CEO, maybe not really early in your career, but in some part of your career, you became the CEO of the French Institute, which had no connection neither to Judaism or to Israel, right?
Right.
So can you tell me a little bit about that experience?
It was one of those accidents of life, of being in the right place at the right time. I was doing some work for them, and as in fundraising, and the executive director at the time, he was retiring after about 23, 24 years. And it was a very hierarchical French organization, but it was... it's in New York. It's the largest French cultural center in the United States. And when he left, one of the board members asked if I was interested. And I said, I'm not French. And they said, that's okay, you understand the audience that we're trying to reach. I said, I don't speak French. They said, well, this is the Alliance Française, you can learn. So I applied, and they accepted me in this position. Now, I had 6 months as their fundraiser, so I understood the basics. I also understood their audience. And then I worked with the staff, understanding that our role was to reach out to an American population, not to be in a bubble of a French population.
So in a way, if I get it right, it was more to expose French culture or French people to...
French language, French culture.
To Americans in general.
That's correct.
This is very interesting, and I also see some similarities the way you did afterwards at the JCC, at Sid Jacobson JCC, but we'll get to it. But I want to ask also about this. You got this prize.
Ordre de Mérite.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is?
Yeah, it's, there are levels of French awards. So you've got the Legion of Honor, and then and you've got the Ordre de Mérite, and then you have another one which is all about people that are purely involved with French culture. And so, one's red, one's blue, one's, another color. But what happened was I went to Paris for some meetings, And I was there during their independence celebrations, the 14 Juillet, and I saw that they celebrated in the street. Dancing, music, joy. So when I came back and I said, what do the French do? And they said they are either going back to France or they're going to the Hamptons or they have a ball, generally for the Franco-American population. I said, well, but that's not the way they celebrate it in Paris. So I wanted to see if we can create a popular celebration on the street like they do in Paris. And so we created the celebration of French Independence Day on 60th Street with what they call a bal musette, where you've got music and dancing in the street. And our tagline was, come dance with us. We had several thousand people that came. It was just a grand success. We closed one block the first year. We then closed 2 blocks the second. One was the bal musette, and then we had French restaurants lining up on the other block. And then the third year, we closed 3 blocks, and it was just for family and children's games and parties. And then when I asked to close 4 blocks, the city told me,
this is too much.
You better stay at 3. But by that point, we were getting like 10 or 15,000 people coming.
Wow. Is it still on?
It is.
Really?
Yeah.
So unique. So you made your...
So because of that, the popularization of the French Independence Day, the French government gave me an award. And that was the Ordre de Mérite. So it's an Ordre de Mérite. It's a merit. It's an merit award. So I have a
patch.
It's not a patch. It's a medal.
Wow.
The French police are supposed to salute me.
Oh, okay. I never saw it, by the way.
I'll show it to you.
Great. This is so interesting because...
So when I went to Sid, it was like, why are we not having something for Yom Ha'atzmaut?
So exactly. So in a way, now I realize the whole idea of the Israel fast.
Correct. Exactly.
So this is actually super interesting because it looks like you have this talent of understanding a culture to its core and to make it more accessible to other people.
Yeah, I don't know that I could say I understand something to its core, but when I first went to the Alliance Française, the cultural director was all about excellence. She wanted just pure excellence on stage, and I wanted popular. So we decided to marry the two. What would bring in the most number of people for the most amount of fun, and then what do they think is excellence in culture that can also have the highbrow kind of crowd to it. So that was the instinct. It was, what am I doing this for? What's its function? And its function is to bring people to, at that point, French culture and language and literature. Within the context of a JCC, what's its function? It's pretty much the same principle, but affecting people's lives in a positive and connective way, no matter what age you are. And in the JCC that I was in, Sid Jacobson, I also inherited a phenomenal program where they were going to be helping people who were least able to help themselves. Those people that may have Alzheimer's or early onset dementia, those people who have been diagnosed with cancer, those people who, adults on the autistic spectrum that needed more of support of the community.
So this is actually, as you know, I know a little bit about the programs at Sid Jacobson JCC, but this is a very good way to understand the way you were thinking when you established all of this there. So you came to Sid Jacobson JCC. It was 2011, right? And then you just decided to take everything that you've learned or everything that you already done in the past roles that you had and just bring it there.
No, not exactly.
What did you see?
So
what did you see that was
about 2
missing?
years in, because it takes a while to understand an organization. Who were its players? What works? What doesn't work? I mean, it's a study, right? And 2 years in, the board asked me, what am I going to bring them that's new?
So the first 2 years, they told you, just keep the ball rolling.
No, that's what I decided that I was going to do. And
Really?
I simply prayed that was going to be.
Okay.
It was like, yeah, I mean, I don't know, there are now 16 different centers of operation. That back then, I don't know, what was it, 12 or something? But they were all substantial. So there's a learning curve. There's also a fundraising obligation of somebody who's serving as a CEO. So all of that went into play in the first 2 years of learning who's who, raising the dollars that were necessary, figuring out the budget so it's secure. But then when they asked me what was new, the answer for me was clear. And I said, there's an Israeli flag in front of the building and no manifestation of Israeli culture whatsoever. I'm not going to bring you anything that's new. I'm going to bring you something you forgot along the way. And there were one or two people on the board that understood that the connection to Israel was missing and that they wanted to help me establish it. So we also went to the UJA. They were starting to fund the shlichut or shlichim in the area, and I asked to be put on the list. They really weren't sure because it was late in the day, and at that particular point, my message was, we're going to do it with you or without you. I'd really rather do it with you.
So you're talking about it as if it's very straightforward, very easy, very easy to think about the fact that if you have a flag, you should have something, some program that is related to that.
Maybe, no. Philosophically, I believed and believe that Israel will never be as secure as it needs to be. I shouldn't say never. Israel at the time was not going to be as secure as it needed to be if it did not have American Jewish support, assuring that the United States policy was behind it. Similarly, I believe that American Jewry, as a minority, would never be as secure if Israel didn't exist. So I felt that there was an absolute need for each other, in order to strengthen both the Jew and the diaspora, as well as the Jewish state. That was the philosophical underpinning of being able to say, this is what you forgot along the way. This is the rationale behind it. Then it was, well, how do you manifest that? And the first thing that we wanted to do was to bring over a shaliach.
Okay, I'm going to stop you here, where I really want to dive into the Center for Israel and all of this connection between Israel, Jewish diaspora, and we have so many things to talk about. But right now, we're going to finish this episode. We're going to start talking about this on the next episode. So stay tuned to the next episode, and thank you for tuning into this episode of the Israeli Bond on hmTV. I appreciate my guest, David Black, that's going to join me to another episode right after that, for sharing some insight about his life and what led him to get to Sid Jacobson JCC and to be the CEO of Sid Jacobson JCC. If you enjoyed exploring the information, the history, and the stories of today's conversation, be sure to check out the other podcasts here on hmTV. Please subscribe, share, stay connected for more engaging conversation. And as I said before, please stay tuned and join us for our next episode, in which David is going to talk in more depth into the Center for Israel and this whole bond between Israel and the Jewish diaspora. Thank you so much. Take care and be well.